good evening. Welcome to Let's Talk Personal. I am your host, Frances Reimers. If you'd like to join in on the conversation, per usual, you can do so on Twitter at LTP Brand Radio or on Instagram at Let's Talk Personal. If you'd like to talk personally with me, and you absolutely do, I love all the emails and messages and DMs, you can do so on Instagram at Firestarter CEO or on Twitter at Your Firestarter. We have a ton to talk about on this very icky, gloomy, ugly day here in DC. Hence the bright lipstick, because the town is just ick. It's pouring rain. It's cold. People are driving trucks through windows of Dunkin' Donuts, and people are dying. It's rough here today in the DC metro area, and so we wanted to brighten up. But we have a lot to talk about, and I have a lot of people, more than usual, to talk to on the panel today. So joining me, these faces probably look familiar because I have been on their show. I have with me Anthony and Scott from Off the Record, which is a show also from here in the DC metro area for those of you who are outside of the DC metro area. Guys, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, definitely. I'm coming straight from traffic court, so if you don't recognize me without my fitted cap and my normal get up, I had traffic court this morning, and I received the ticket.
Good.
So obviously my outfit wasn't good enough.
I was giving him a hard time off air because, I'm dressed normal, Anthony is dressed normal. And he comes rolling up in here looking like a substitute teacher. And I was like, did you just come for traffic court? Like, what's going on here? No, you look delightful. Thank you for, putting together your Sunday's best for today's show. I appreciate it.
I went shopping before I came on the show. I decided.
I
decided. I said, look, you're on video. I was like, I gotta step my game up. So it's always a tough crowd. Yeah, exactly.
This is forever.
So I don't want to be on YouTube in my regular fitted and a white T-shirt. So I had to dress like I was going.
I have on the polo. It was cold, so
it is cold.
So I kept on my hoodie.
Look, I appreciate all of the thought, all of the effort that you've put into today's show. I literally got dressed and showered 30 minutes before it was time for me to get here. So that tells you how much effort I put into today.
I saw last week Santana Moss and Ralph Sampson were on here, and I said, no, I can't be outshined. I cannot be outshined. No.
Last week's show was a surprise to even yours truly. So it was only supposed to be Santana, and he had to cut out early because of all of the Kirk Cousins nonsense. And so I had 30 more minutes to fill. Right. And Ralph Sampson, bless his heart, he was watching and was like, do you want me to dial in? I'm happy to chat. And I was like, yes, cool. Yes, I do want you to dial in. So, but both of them being on the show was great because other friends of mine in basketball and football, they were like, oh, can I be on the show? I mean, look at that.
Yeah, just recognize every time I'm a guest, I want to dress like I'm going to traffic court because you never know who's watching. I mean, Ralph Sampson might be watching, and that's part of branding.
That is branding. It is branding. Well, this show
so is this hat. It's branding.
Right. And with
to your advice, you only get one good opportunity.
Showing up with this hat, with that hat.
Believe it or not, it's a lot of Cowboys fans in DC.
They are, and most of them have never actually been to Dallas, which is a surprising.
That's not a surprise in DC.
No, not at all. Not at all. Okay, lots to chit chat today. But the first thing I wanted to talk about, this show is broadcast in 180 countries, and so a lot of my viewers are actually from the Midwest, not the DC area. Okay. And so they don't know a lot about you all and what brought you here. So a while back, I was on their show talking about athletes and branding, so I wanted to bring them on my show to talk about their show and their brand, because that's keeping it theme. Right. Keeping it theme appropriate for each other's show. You guys have a sports talk show. There's a ton of sports talk shows out there. So what made you guys want to throw your hat into that ring, and what kind of differentiates your show from other shows that are out there?
You can go ahead and answer.
He's like, I'm not going to go first.
Trust me, we're never on that sort of accord. We're always arguing, but as far as our show, true. As far as our show, we started initially about 4 years ago now, right. And it was something that I know I wanted to do growing up. I always felt like I always had a lot to say, and I always wanted to find a way to get my voice out there. Right. So when we started off the record, it was just me by myself initially, and I was a nervous wreck. Scott, being a friend that he is, he said, "Hey, why don't I come on and do a 5-minute segment?"
Okay.
And actually, Scotty B's Fantasy 5. That's where it all started from. He said, "Let me talk fantasy sports for about 5 minutes." So,
Scotty B, are you from the Jersey Shore? Like, do you wear tank tops? Like, what is that?
I appreciate the love.
So what happened was I'll tell you the very first show we did, I couldn't remember my name. I was nervous. So Scott wasn't actually in the studio, and he did his segment. It was supposed to be 5 minutes.
Right.
It was about what, 15 minutes.
Right, because I was nervous over the phone.
And I didn't cut him off once.
Right.
I didn't chime in. I didn't say anything. So we went back and listened to it. He was like, "Whoa, that's not, you know." So after a while, you know, we started trying to craft it, and then what we do is we don't want to just talk about the random sports stories that's going on normally that everybody's talking about.
Right.
So what we like to do, we have music, we insert music in our show, and we try to talk about things that's not really talked about on the ESPNs, the Fox Sports, and try and draw up a conversation and get people talking about things of that nature.
Right. And just to piggyback on that, not everybody's a sports guru, but a lot of people do have an opinion on like what's going on with Michigan State University, or who's better, Tony Romo or Dak Prescott, or should the Redskins change their team name, or is Kirk Cousins just being greedy? You know, those are just normal conversations that center around pretty much everything. So we wanted to be able to just talk about, to Ant's point, things that you won't necessarily find them zoning in on or honing in on ESPN, but it's still topics that people are having around the dinner table. People are talking about it in the barbershop. People are just talking about it everywhere. So,
speaking of the barbershop, this whole like going to the barbershop thing, I am coming to find is a very serious thing.
Absolutely.
As a Caucasian, this is clearly not something that is a big thing in my life per se, but I have clients who literally cancel meetings with me because it's interfering somehow with their trip to the barbershop. So this is becoming an issue in my life. I've had to go to a barbershop to have a meeting because that was the only time they would sit still long enough for the meeting. This is becoming a thing. This is becoming an issue in my life.
You always want to be well-groomed.
I guess so.
You definitely want to be well-groomed. And women go to the beauty salon and spend $200 or whatever dollars.
Absolutely.
So we go once a week.
Right. I think it's more than once a week for some people.
Depends what's going
every
on.
Other day.
It depends what's going on. If I got traffic court, I want to go twice. I want to go twice a week.
It really depends. So if you go to the barbershop on a Friday, you may have to come on Let's Talk Personal on Wednesday.
Right.
And you have to go to the bar. You have to get at least a lineup or something before,
Right, she hadn't noticed. My normal day is Thursdays ago, but I went yesterday because I said,
you're going to be on the internet. Yeah, that's You're going to be on the internet.
You cannot take this back once it's out.
Once it's out. Once the cat's out of the bag, like it's out there.
So I got to look good. So if I don't sound good, I got to at least be like, he had a fresh lineup and his beard was good to go.
Noted. So you guys, getting back to your show, you guys are you're less stats and figures and more lifestyle and the current events angle of sports.
Right. And we'll talk stats, but that's not, like you said, like more current events and things of that nature.
Right.
Yeah.
I think honestly, with men and women, when sports shows really start going deep into stats, I think you lose most people.
And that's what we found earlier is, so Ann and I could talk about how smart we are and how much we know about sports, but you're right. You're going to lose the average person. They're not interested in that. They just, I think most people are interested in the narrative.
Right.
More or less.
Right.
And that's what attracts, women, children, people of all
animals.
Yeah. Animals too. Yeah.
No, I think the story and the narrative, sports is kind of the story of our lives intrinsically as Americans or worldwide, but we Americans, I think we feel very deeply about things like baseball and football and in some parts of the country, basketball even. And sports is part of the narrative of our lives. And that story, the story of these athletes, the stories of the teams, the franchises, what's going on in the day-to-day, I think that's what people are tuning in for. And I think people also kind of want to understand what's happening in sports. Things go on in sports that don't really happen anywhere else in our social ecosystem, and I think people just want to make heads or tails of things that go on, and so that's kind of the angle that you guys are going at. But you also weave in music, so talk about how that fits into the whole structure.
Okay, so one thing that I've noticed, two things that bring people together is sports and music.
Right.
No matter what age you are, no matter what color, whatever, sports and music brings people together, or they really draw them apart. Like they'll go. So one of the things was, again, we wanted to do something different. Right. So when initially when we started, it was just a show, and we knew we didn't want to just be one long run-on sentence.
Right.
So when we took breaks, we said, instead of just having people listen to whatever, we'll just insert music, and it happens to be like people like it. They they really like it. They say, oh, that's a good twist. We didn't think about that.
Right.
So.
Well, shows are an evolution. This show every week is an evolution. I don't think there's been 2 episodes in the entire time that I've run this show that have been exactly the same. And some of them deviate off the path greatly. I mean, we had an entire episode once where the latter half of the episode, my guest talked about dick pics for the entire show.
Oh, wow. Well, we definitely don't want to talk about dick pics.
We're not talking about that.
He felt very strongly about it, and he just rolled with it. It's one of my favorite clips of all time.
What, did he like them? Or?
No. Because so I asked him, what's a social media trend that he wish would stop, and he was like, guys need to stop sending women dick pics. It's bad. It's bad for everybody.
Well, that
but then he just he made his statement. He made his point. I agreed, but then the train just kept on going, and I wasn't gonna.
So is he getting them?
He does not receive any that I'm aware of. Right, but he, being a dad and a husband and just a concerned citizen, he felt very strongly about this and just kept going.
Something must have happened.
He had to receive
I
one.
had mentioned earlier in the show about me receiving a dick pic via LinkedIn, and he was very fired up about this. He was very fired up about this.
That's guts, though.
Right?
I mean, you know where the person works. And
you know where they work. You know everybody they know. Like, you can look up their boss. Like, it is ignorance of the highest caliber, in my opinion. But we digress. So, so both of you uniquely bring something to the table via your own brands. I mean, obviously, you're not joined at the hip. Questionable, but you're not joined at the hip all of the time. Each of you come from two different worlds. So how do your individual brands kind of help guide and advance the show?
Well, I think for me, I didn't play outside of high school. So a lot of sports is more of a hobby. I am into the statistics, the narratives, and what's going on. So I think him being the athlete, he's kind of the football player, and then I'm more the commentator. So I think that's how we try to mesh it to where it makes a little bit more sense.
Right.
Well, I mean, he said it all. But no, seriously. So again,
that's it. That's all we have to say about that.
I've been playing sports since I was in probably 1st or 2nd grade, and I coach high school now, and so the kids, they actually love the show. They retweet and
of course,
and so I think just bringing that element of the game, is and I love music, so
right,
yeah.
And I think sometimes when you're an athlete like Ant, you're not as critical of
he is such a liar.
No, but
I'm not as critical as him.
Right, but I think when you play the game and you kind of understand what goes into it,
right,
you're a little bit less critical. Me, I'm just a regular fan. I'm the guy that probably is going to be on social media.
You're that asshole.
Yeah, exactly.
So I agree with that. I agree. See, but the thing is he's right on that, because I not necessarily giving a player the benefit of the doubt, but it'll be a situation where
Alex Smith.
Yeah. That we go back and forth on this. We've been going back and forth on Alex Smith probably the last 5 years. Probably longer than that. It's been longer. It's been longer than 5 years. And it's just
at some point you guys are gonna have to let it go.
Well, he's probably gonna have to retire. I mean,
you know what? I blame the Redskins. It was dead. until the Redskins made a trade for him. I think you were on the show when we had talked about the little bet that we had about the Chiefs going to.
You were there?
Yeah, no, she was there, and then
he pressured me into that bet. I'm telling you,
pressured.
You know why? You know why?
Like
because
he's a 13-year-old boy at a party in some parents' basement.
Here's the thing,
he was pressured into this.
It was so many things. It was like, so it was one thing, like, he's a 49ers fan. Right. So Alex Smith, when Alex Smith got drafted number 1, the 49ers were bad. And from his first year to how long was he there? 7 years?
Yeah.
To his 7th year or to his 6th year.
Right.
He had a different offensive coordinator
every year.
And I keep on telling Scott that plays a part. That makes a difference in how someone is going to be successful, especially if you don't have the team around them. And all the way from that point, all the way till even last week, we were on the phone probably an hour arguing about stats, about how many receivers that he threw to that had 1,000, literally about a week ago. And we was just talking. And I'm like, Scott, that doesn't mean anything. I was like, he still had 2 guys that was over 1,000 yards. It was crazy.
You know what's bad, though? From the time he's been drafted.
How long you've been talking about this?
I've watched every single game that this guy's played in.
Right.
So I'm just to the point to where at some point you've got to eliminate the excuses. And people like him that just
excuses.
Stick up for him.
But what do you say to Aaron Rodgers going on record saying that he's one of the most underrated quarterbacks out there?
Who, Alex Smith?
Right.
Yeah. I mean,
he doesn't watch him on Sunday.
That's come on, man.
No, I'm serious. He's playing. He's playing.
You think he doesn't watch Alex Smith? You think these players don't watch each other or are paying attention to what these guys are doing?
I think they're paying attention to that
later on.
I mean, you guys need to hug this out. This is rough for you. This is going to land you in marriage therapy.
But that's just one of the things. I mean, we've gone back and forth about different things. I mean, and I think ultimately that actually makes a good show. We have good chemistry as far as knowledge of the game and going back and forth. Is sometimes we agree. Right. We do agree on some things, and some things we don't agree on.
Right.
So I mean, it's just the nature of the beast, and it's 2 guys talking, and like brothers and family, they're never gonna agree on everything.
Right.
So it is what it is.
Well, it would make for a sucky show.
Most of the time, I'm right.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it would make for a sucky show if you guys agreed on everything all the time.
Absolutely.
No, but back to your barbershop point. That's what goes on. That's what goes on in the barbershop. It's a running debate over things that don't matter, because obviously Alex Smith doesn't care what I think about him. Or doesn't care what. I mean, he's about to get $72 million. He didn't.
Yeah, he
didn't
care.
Give
0 fucks about what you guys
he's probably gonna find me. Hey, idiot! I've made more money than. Who cares if you think I suck?
Yeah.
So I mean, at the end of the day,
he's gonna sleep like a baby, regardless.
He's gonna sleep, and he has more money probably in a year than I'll make for the rest of my life.
Yes.
So I mean,
facts.
Yeah, facts.
He's pretty good. So you guys, like you guys have had guests on the show throughout your period, and guests can be a challenge sometimes. How do you guys work through when you have a guest on that they have one particular agenda that they're wanting to get across on their show, and you have another agenda? How do you guys handle when you have a rogue guest on the show?
I think you have to handle it how you handled it last week. And Santana Moss was a great guest.
Yeah, he was great.
But the problem is when you have guests and you're not in the studio, it's hard for them to pick up on your body language. So we're sitting next to you, and pretty much you're going to give us the eye when we start talking too long.
I'll just cut you off.
Exactly. Or it's a lot easier to do that.
Right.
So I think, like you did, you have to let them talk, see where it's going, and then kind of steer it where you need to go. Right.
Well, it helps that Santana is a client, and I knew the answers to the questions before he answered them. So that makes it easy. Same thing with Ralph. I knew what he was going to say before he said it, so it was able to. It's easy. Right. And so I guess the rule of thumb of that one is get to know people really well before you bring them on a live show.
Yeah, and like Scott said, like with callers on the radio, not just callers, but guests on the phone.
Right.
It's tough. Sometimes you have to cut them off. And you let them. Sometimes if you let them talk, you'll never talk again until it's time for a break. And sometimes but you reel them in. it's tough during the break because, like, if you're in the studio with them,
right,
during the break, you say, "All right, we'll go here or we'll go there." Mm-hmm. But if they're on the phone, you can't really do that. We just have to, they just gonna have to pick up on our vibe and everything that's going on.
Just hope for the best.
Right, and I will say that we haven't really had that big of an issue yet, but. You never know.
You never know.
Right.
It's live TV. You never know.
And last week with the Skype thing, I mean, you didn't have that problem, but it was interesting just seeing, like, okay, how is she going to handle this and how is she going to get through this? And then when it kind of froze up, I was like, okay, she handled that.
I mean, what are you going to do?
Right, exactly.
I mean, all you can do is sit there and smile and be like, I hope the technology gods are on my side here very quickly. I mean, I think one of the great things about the way that our world is evolving with technology is people are starting to understand the magic of television and radio and the internet, and shit's gonna happen. So, what are you gonna do? I mean, this is not a major network. This ain't CNN. Like, we can't cut to a commercial. So I think people are a little more understanding of it, but still you get, I've had a few guests where I'm like, what are they going to say? Like, I'm not quite sure how they're gonna answer this question. Man. And I'm like, I'm kind of sitting there just smiling and hoping for the best, and luckily it's always turned out. So where do you guys see the show going? Like, what's the next move for the show, or how do you see it growing or changing?
All right, so we're gonna start doing video as well.
Yay! It's the way to go. We're
gonna do video. I had to twist a few arms. All 4 of the arms are in the studio. I'm not gonna say.
Not gonna name names.
I'm not gonna name names, but we're gonna go video.
Right.
I personally think that I see us going further up, whether it's to satellite or maybe even network TV.
Right.
We're just gonna keep on trying to progress and see where this good old radio thing takes us.
And is it gonna stay a hobby, or are you guys trying to move this into like your jobby job?
You know what? That's a good question, because people ask me that every day. Like, where is this going?
Because people ask me that all the time. So I'm happy to hear if somebody else give an answer to this.
Well, I think at first you don't know where your ceiling is. Right. So when you start out, it is a hobby, and then you start to realize, like, well, I'm getting good, and I can.
Well,
I can be good at this, and yeah. And I mean, you see it to where, like, well, I can do this full time. I can, if you brand it right and you keep doing what you're doing,
right,
and you keep growing. And I personally think, yes, I feel like I will not be working my regular job in the future if we continue on our pace.
Right.
And we just in this, we haven't even been on in DC for a year,
right?
And we've covered the CIAA football championship. We're gonna cover CIAA basketball,
right?
And we're going to LA to cover a celebrity all-star game. So
yeah, are you guys gonna be? Where is the All-Star game at?
It's going to be
the celebrity thing.
It's actually going to be at USC.
Okay.
It's going to be at USC. It's not with the NBA.
Right.
It's going to be NBA.
No, it's a celebrity thing. Yeah.
Right.
For charity.
And, I want to say it was Steve Francis's foundation.
Yeah, it's his foundation.
That's throwing it, and so I just think that's another way we can network.
Right.
We could build.
Well, I mean, you get media credentials, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. So we have the credentials. We'll have our
I
little
should get
lanyard.
Let's Talk Personal media. I'm gonna be there.
Really?
Yeah.
You gonna be in LA?
Yeah.
Oh well. Get some media.
I mean, I have no reason to cover, but
I mean, to me, any way you can network, I think is a positive thing. It's a good thing. Like we went to CBC.
Yep.
We at the time we didn't have any business cards on us, but even then,
you showed up to something without business cards.
We did. Because it was a hobby, and you just don't understand.
Even if it's a hobby.
No,
well, I think to your point, and how I became a fan of you is you don't know that some people don't know that you have a brand, and when you start as a hobby, you're like, oh, okay, well, it's just a hobby, but at that point, you have a brand too.
Right.
And
well, you as an individual, you are a brand.
Right. Absolutely.
Right. So
Yes.
when we
Don't even get me started.
No, so when we started taking that outlook to realize that we do have a brand, it's up to us to expand it.
Right.
Then it just opened up more doors for
I
us.
will say this: when we walked out of there, we were kicking ourselves like we didn't have no business card. I mean, and we talked to a lot of people,
right?
But we were like, we didn't have no business cards. They could be listening to the show. We could have had guests for the show. They probably just like, oh, they just talking,
Yeah.
And I exchanged numbers with some people,
right?
And took their business cards, but we didn't have anything to give them. So,
right.
But we don't have that problem anymore.
Yes, clearly.
We don't have that problem anymore.
I always tell people, like, we live in a day and age of you don't have a business card, but you have your phone.
Right.
And so immediately be like, let me look you up on LinkedIn and connect, like get them up on LinkedIn and connect right then and there. Because at least you're walking away with some sort of connection.
Right.
Or I've gone to things where I have met people that I'm like, I'm probably never going to cross paths with this person again. And I'm like, can I do a video interview with you right quick or take a picture? That way I have a reason to reach back out to that person and stay in touch with them. Right. Because it's interesting, that connectivity, people are always like, well, that's networking. Well, your brand is networking.
Right.
And how you grow, your network is your net worth. Who you can pick up the phone and call, that's all a part of your brand too.
Right.
And if you're in, opportunities like the All-Star game or these football tournaments or whatever the case, you have to use that as much as you possibly can. And so whenever if I run out of business cards or whatever the case may be, I get out my phone and I connect with them right on LinkedIn. If they're not on LinkedIn, which in this day and age, it's very rare to come across. I mean, Shaq is on LinkedIn, for Christ's sakes.
Right.
It's very rare, and we are connected. Right. It's very rare to come across people who aren't on LinkedIn, but if they're not, be like, can I take a picture? Can I do a video interview with you? Because then it gives you a reason to reach back out and be like, hey, Anthony, it was so great to meet you. Here's the video I took. If you want to post it, great. If not, that's cool, right. But I'm going to post it and whatever. And that's the way to keep it going. So when you're there at the All-Star game, if you run out of business cards, remember what your friend Francis had to say and get back on there. So when you're there at the All-Star game, at the celebrity tournament, at the celebrity game, so you're going to be sitting in the press box covering it live for your station, for your show back here, or what's the setup?
So what we're gonna do? They keep on switching things.
Of course.
So
these things are never final.
Right. So I guess as early as this morning, I got an email saying that press is going to be in a certain area.
Yeah.
Photographers are going to be in another area, and videographers.
Like the red carpet or something.
Videographers they can only record before the game and after the game, not during the game.
Right.
Obviously.
Of course. Yeah.
And so our goal of business to we're going to have a portable recorder.
Yeah.
So and a camera. So we'll do interviews with separate celebrities.
Right.
And that's just one of the things that we need to, I guess, finalize is who will we have access to and who won't we have access to.
They didn't say in the email?
No.
Yeah.
And so we will.
Because they don't know.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Yeah.
So
they don't know.
And I mean, and basketball is a little different than football because when we was at CIAA, we had press access, so I was on the sidelines.
Right.
And we took pictures of the games. And we talked to some people after the game. I talked to the coach. We went after the post-game interview, asked the coach a question.
Right.
They responded. We posted that online.
Right.
So now we didn't have the mobile recording device. Had we had that, after the game, we could have interviewed a couple of players after the game, talking about the game and their experience.
Right.
But again, it's a growing process. So
yeah,
now that we have those technology,
we're
going to use it. We're going to use it in California. We're going to use it in Charlotte. We're going to use it in Richmond. We're going to use it in We're going to use it. It's not.
Yes. Are you going to use it? I'm not sure.
Yeah, we're going to use it. So
are you gonna blog about this as well? Are you gonna, especially like the All-Star game? Are you gonna kind of blog about the experience?
Yes.
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, we're gonna
extend
talk about
that life a little bit.
Right. And one thing that I don't do that I probably need to do more is. Not necessarily Snapchat, but just record the experience.
Yeah,
absolutely. Record the experiences, not even just for the show, but for myself. So 10 years down the line, I can record it. Scott the same. Because Scott's worse than me.
Well, make sure you download it to the cloud because you won't have it 10 years from now unless you put it on the cloud.
Man.
So, I mean, you guys are going to have a great time. I'll let you guys know where I'm at in LA so we can stay connected. And if I'm going to LA, we'll find out here. I'm pretty sure I'm going. So there's that. So we'll have to talk about the All-Star game after the All-Star game.
Right.
We'll connect about that. But other stuff going on in sports in the past 24 hours that I definitely wanted to make sure because it touches sports and brand.
Yeah, absolutely.
I didn't originally have on our sheet for today to talk about any particular sports or sports players, but in the past 24 hours, a lot of stuff has gone down that I feel like we need to address because I have sports guys here on the show. Josh McDaniels, this is a hot mess of a situation, and everybody is up in arms of the who, what, when, where, why of this. What is your guys' take? And I'll jump in from the brand perspective here in a second. But what do you guys think about all of this?
Personally, I think it was the right decision. I think that Tom Brady realizes if he wants to go a little further in his career, he wants to play until he's like 45. He's 40 now.
That's not happening.
Well, it may not happen, but what he's setting himself up for is he wants to have the offensive coordinator that he's had the most success with. And he doesn't want to change offensive coordinators going into his 41st birthday. You know, he wants to have that just consistent person that he's been successful with.
Right.
I also think Josh McDaniels had to look at Indianapolis with Andrew Luck. He hasn't resumed throwing the football yet.
Right.
And I think he's going to come back healthy, but that's the situation you're walking into to where you've got to rebuild that team. You don't know what type of quarterback you're going to have. You look at the Patriots, they have everything intact, and you could possibly be in line for that job. So I think it was the right decision.
Okay. And your thoughts here, sir?
Well.
And then I will rebuttal.
Okay. Well, I guess in the short term, it was the right thing to do.
Right.
You know, in the short term. But the problem that I had with this was that, you know, he burned a lot of bridges that wasn't just in Indianapolis, you know, because ultimately he pulled a Bill Belichick. Because Bill Belichick did the same exact thing with the Jets.
Yeah.
You know, so Bill Belichick was there for a day.
Right.
And then went back to New England.
Right.
And now if Bill Belichick was to leave, I mean, maybe now other teams would want him. But let's just say if it was 10 years ago, even though he had won those Super Bowls, those teams would have remembered that, you know, this guy, you can't take him for his word, you know, because of what he did. Now, Josh McDaniels, like Scott said, I think he looked at the situation and saw that Andrew Luck wasn't throwing yet. And that's a big deal.
Right.
You know, the Tom Brady thing had something to do with it because, you know, he met with I don't know if Brady was in there, but it was with the owner and Bill Belichick and the owner's son. And they ultimately talked him into staying. But I think some of the things that they did was, you know, they gave him guarantees that he'll have more say in the personnel moves. Belichick's going to take him under his wing and about the roster moves and the salary cap situation.
Right.
And he said, I read that he was gonna
got a raise too.
Yeah, he got a raise, and his children, his I think he has 4 children. They were gonna be able to stay in the same school district.
Right.
So that's fine. We've seen coaches get long-term contracts and get fired right after that, and I think he's putting all his eggs in one basket. My dad always told me you should never put all your eggs in one basket.
No, but the question I have is all of that is valid. But the situation with Andrew Luck, the situation with Tom Brady, all of these things, these were all known prior to him accepting the job. Why did he not think this through before saying to the Colts, yes, I am interested, or yes, I'm going to accept the position? And especially since all of these assistant coaches that they got to also go to Indianapolis uprooted themselves, their lives, their families, and then he deuces out.
Before you go, one thing is nothing's ever final until you sign on the dotted line.
Right.
And that's ultimately like National Signing Day. Right. Nothing is final till you sign on the dotted line.
Well, it's not even final when you sign on the dotted line.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's one part. So he wasn't, I guess legally, he wasn't locked in.
Right.
Right. But
legally is not even, legally is the least of his concerns.
Right.
Well, okay, so you got to look at it this way. And, he set everything up for me to squash this argument. Okay, so you brought up Bill Belichick and how he backed out of the Jets job.
Yep.
Nobody remembered that until the 30 for 30. I mean, everybody.
Right. And that was a good 30 for 30.
It was
by
great
the way.
30
was
for
great.
30. But you remembered it and I remembered it. But the average person. Yeah. But the average person probably didn't even remember that Bill Belichick was even the Jets head quarterback.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, head coach.
Yeah.
The other side of it too is I think that they know there's other things going on behind the scenes.
Always.
Yeah, exactly. So Bill Belichick, it seems like it's a lot of fire going on in the organization, and they probably told him look, Bill Belichick is planning on retiring in a couple years.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Do you want to go to the situation where you probably won't make the playoffs? You're not going to win the Super Bowl. You're going to be part of a rebuild, or you can inherit this good situation long term, and a year from now, nobody's going to be talking about you backing out of this job. They'll forget this 3 months from now.
You know what's going to happen is going to be all the other 31 teams talking about they broke the Rooney Rule.
Well, as long as they don't promise him on paper that he has that job, they haven't broke the rule.
Okay.
I think simply from an optics standpoint, from the outside casual observer, and I said this when I was talking with the folks with Nuts and Bolts Sports today, I think from the outside as a casual observer, the court of public opinion on Josh McDaniels has spoken, and it doesn't matter what's going on behind the scenes. It doesn't matter what he was promised or not promised. He looks like somebody who did a bait and switch on a lot of people, and his integrity is now severely damaged.
And it was questionable before he went back to New England.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, no, he's always been that. Him and Lane Kiffin, they're
Yep.
part of the same.
At least Lane Kiffin owns his shadiness. He owns it. I mean, I think regardless of what happens next year in Josh's career. And he could have been promised the world. We don't know what was said behind closed doors, but I think a lot of this should have been thought through and processed a lot better before he went. If you looked through social media, there was the tile ad, breaking Josh McDaniels, head coach of the Indianapolis Colts, and then literally it was like, hold up, wait a minute, nope, just kidding, he's back in New England. Whether he wants to say that the media rushed to make an announcement, the media didn't make that up. That is released by the team.
Right. No, I'm telling you what happened. Bill Belichick gave him his blessing. He wanted to go. Kraft gave him his blessing, and Tom Brady raised his hand and said, "Hold on. You can't get rid of my offense coordinator." And Kraft said, "Okay, I'm with you, Tom Brady. We're not with you, Belichick. I'm going to go back. I'm going to get our offensive coordinator back because that's what you need to be successful."
I do think Belichick I don't think he would have been back if Belichick didn't give his blessing.
Right.
Because Belichick is saying...
No, I think he did give him his blessing to go.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And go take the interview.
Because the other dude left to go to the Lions. Right. There's blessings all around today.
Right. I don't think Belichick is going to hold anybody back.
The other guy, Matt Patricia, he probably...
who, by the way, did look like he was going to traffic court today in his press conference. I just want to state that.
But I don't think they weren't going crazy to try and keep him. Because
he's very beloved by the players.
Yes, absolutely. But the defense hasn't been really that good. But and I don't put that all on him because Bill Belichick is ultimately
the
Bill
buck
Belichick
stopped with him,
and he's the defensive coordinator. He runs that defense.
Right.
It's his defense. The other guy's just let's just implement this and this.
Right.
But Bill Belichick. It kind of looks bad on him because he's a defensive guy.
But he doesn't care though.
Oh, he cares. He definitely cares that his defense was ranked 31st in the league.
But
He
they still went to the Super Bowl.
It doesn't
That's
matter.
because they won't pay anybody. I always tell people the quickest way out of New England is to ask for a raise.
Absolutely.
If you start asking for a contract extension,
and that's
they
part,
will
and
cut
that's,
you.
and that's part
Right.
of what
Part of the
happened.
Well, they're thrifty.
And that's part of what happened to Malcolm Butler as well.
Yeah, that's a whole other situation there.
And we will talk about that today,
Yeah,
too,
I mean
because
that's a whole other situation. But the whole reason I wanted to bring this up, the whole Josh McDaniels thing, I mean, this is layer upon layer. But this is a great example of stuff goes on in sports that nobody can fully get their head around. But regardless of what's going on behind the scenes, when Tony Dungy is on Twitter basically saying no one will ever believe you ever again when you say anything.
Yeah, they will. Tony Dungy.
I think as time, people have their opinions about Tony Dungy. I know I certainly do, but over time, people will the roar of this will die down. But I don't think this will ever go away for him. There will always be this cloud.
It's going to be there for a while.
It's going to be there for a while. I don't think
But
this is going to immediately go away.
I will say this. If he does happen to get, which I'll bet my check that he's going to be the next head coach of the Patriots.
I think, yes. Yeah.
If he wins a Super Bowl or 2 Super Bowls.
Forgotten.
No one's
by
gonna think about
some.
it.
Because forgotten by some. There's always that
anybody
small
in the-
minority
in the
that
barbershop
wants to
that's
bring up
talking
old
about
shit.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
anybody that's a
Sitting
Colts
in the
fan is
corner
never
of the
going to forget
barbershop,
that.
yeah.
Colts fans are not going to remember
No,
that.
they will remember it forever.
And if you listen to what the GM said today, he said the rivalry's back on, but maybe in probably like 5 years, because right now your team stinks.
Right.
So
Right.
so it's not going to be a rivalry.
There might be a rivalry between the front offices,
Yes.
but your team is
and
terrible.
unless what's his name, the quarterback, Andrew Luck.
Andrew Luck,
And
yeah.
unless he comes back healthy,
Right.
you're not going to get another Peyton Manning.
No.
But you had coaches like Billy Donovan. He did it when he was at Florida and he got offered the Orlando job. DeAndre Jordan out there with the Clippers. I mean, he did it when he offered to
Right.
go to Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
Carlos Boozer snaked the Cavaliers about 10 years ago before he went to the Jazz. I mean, those are instances to where they agreed to sign with
Right.
the team. Everything was drawn up, and then at the last minute, somebody said, "Oh, okay,
Well, think about how many players were offered something. They're on the practice squad or whatever, and then suddenly it didn't go through. It happens both ways.
Right.
So you're going to have people like us three that are going to remember that, and just like I remember all
Yes, 'cause
three
I
of those
never forget
scenarios. But I mean, Billy Donovan. I mean, like you said, now he's
Yeah,
coaching
I
OKC.
totally forgot about the Billy Donovan thing until you just said
And
it.
it's been other instances.
Yeah, because
People
he
forget.
was gone. He was
Yeah.
he was out there.
Absolutely.
He went back.
So let's shift gears here for a second to talk about the court of public opinion, better known as social media. we are all very entrenched in social media.
Right.
It's my job. It's how you guys get the word out about the show, amongst other things. How do you think, for better or for worse, how do you think social media is playing an impact on sports, both on the court and off the court?
Okay, I think it's about half and half. I like it because you can get real time feedback.
Right.
You can also gauge how like athletes feel. You can gauge how somebody was watching the game, how everybody else felt.
Right.
You don't have to wait till the next day to read the Washington Post or look at the internet to try to figure out like how everybody felt. What I hate about social media is it gives a voice to people that probably shouldn't have a voice. And maybe that's an old school thought, but
Right.
my Facebook page is filled with a whole bunch of idiots that I may have went to elementary school with, just randomly blogging about just stuff that nobody
Scott,
cares
they're gonna
about.
get you for that one.
Yeah.
Who's going to get me about it?
Those
random idiots know who they are. They know who they are. They're on my page and they're
You know
talking
who
about
you are.
I want sushi for lunch. Nobody cares. Or it's a rainy day and I'm sitting in traffic. Nobody cares. You know.
Somebody cares. Their mom cares. Their dad cares. Somebody cares.
And when you look at it, it has 2 likes on it. Like
Right.
So, my thing with social media is it depends. If it's an athlete talking
Yeah.
about, you get an in-depth, you see kind of how they are.
Right.
You do get those people. The part that I don't really like about it are like the people that are just trying to get attention. So they'll badmouth. Like, we'll just use LeBron James because he's probably one of the most popular athletes in the world.
I would say so.
So you have somebody that's just gonna keep on going on about LeBron James, just to try and get a reaction from those same people that are
trolls,
that are trolling him, have on his sneakers, they have on his jersey,
absolutely,
or whatever, and it's just those are the things that are annoying. Like, you have people that's just purposely trying to get under someone's skin. Just for clickbait, or things of that nature, and just so they could try and have people look at their account and get likes and things of that. And so that part is annoying. The part that I do like is, again, you get like Scott said, you get real time access to the players.
Right.
You kind of get to see the real them instead of just the persona of them when they're wearing their jersey or whatever. So in that case, that's pretty cool.
Right.
But again, those trolls,
trolls are tough because, actually for a lot of people, they need the trolls.
Yeah.
Because the trolls keep them relevant.
Right.
If you haven't, had a win in quite a while, the trolls, whether you like it or not, they're keeping you at the top of the feed and keeping you relevant.
That is true.
So it's a love-hate. It's just a matter of how you're going to engage with them, like people who say that I'm exploiting black people. So yeah, you engage with the trolls how you have to.
And we talked about that, and it's crazy because Scott and I said we would have just ignored them. And you said you had to.
Yep.
And I mean, in certain cases, I guess you do have to.
Because he was attacking my integrity.
Right.
He wasn't attacking something superficial like my hair or the outfit I have on.
Right.
He was attacking my credibility and my integrity as a business owner. I couldn't just sit back and not say something.
I just think it's just pure ignorant. I mean, somebody that's not looking back to where, like, us coming on this show is helping our brand. Like, it's not just for you.
You're
it's
welcome.
A mutual. Yeah, absolutely. But
I'll take
it. I'll take it too. So, exploiting black people, I mean, somebody that's. Again, that's one of the idiots. I probably went to elementary school. And I'm pretty sure, like, if you go past his feed, you're going to find a mutual friend with me. And
man, don't say that, Scott.
It
was me.
Man.
It's probably somebody I know, I confess.
Oh, my God. So who do you guys think is putting out the best content right now?
All right, so the best content, I will say, I just talked about LeBron James, right?
Right. Yep.
And I won't say he's putting out the best, but he's putting out the most newsworthy content. Because speaking of trolls, he's like the biggest troll.
Yes.
In sports, know, and just the subliminals is actually backfiring on them a little bit because they're not playing that well.
Right.
But he's always tweeting. You could tell he's always tweeting. Like James Harden, he had the 62 points. And the triple doubles, the 60-point triple double.
Right.
Kevin Durant he was the youngest to get to I think 20,000 or 25,000, and he tweeted him. Mm-hmm. He tweeted about Steph Curry and Kyrie Irving.
Right.
And but never tweets about his own teammates.
Right.
He never tweets about his own teammates, and I think after a while,
because he gives them love in private.
I guess.
Yeah. Right. But I think that I definitely look at his social media to see what's next, and we'll see.
I mean, his media company is putting out amazing content.
Right. Yes.
And that's curated through him, and you can't deny the interest and the quality of what he's putting out there. He's kind of changing. He and people like Derek Jeter with the Players Tribune. I mean, they're kind of changing the face of the way that sports reporting is being done.
And speaking of, like, we were just talking about barbershop talk, he actually has they had a video. It was him, Draymond Green, 2 Chainz. Who else was in that video?
2 Chainz.
It was a bunch of them in a barbershop.
Right.
His manager, who was his best friend, his agent, they all in the barbershop and they just having talks. And I want to say this is when All-Star Game was in Oakland. And they all was in there and talking, and it was just barbershop talk. They were just talking about what's going on in the league and things of that nature, and that was pretty cool. Now his media company, they put that out as well.
Right.
So.
Right.
I have a whole different angle. Okay, so I agree with the LeBron James, but my favorite is Gilbert Arenas.
Okay.
Gilbert Arenas.
Okay.
I can count on him for finding some of the most ignorant statements that I've ever heard, and it's entertaining. So I like
I'm
Gilbert
actually
Arenas.
surprised Gilbert Arenas hasn't been Scotty B's winner of the week, but I think that's because Scotty B has a love. He has a love for Gilbert Arenas that he will not give him. He is biased when it comes to Gilbert.
Yep.
I don't know if it's because he was with the Wizards and he was.
It was because he was with the Wizards, so I got to watch his ignorance up close.
Man.
And I was just like, wow.
I think, my definition of good content is anything that is unique, personalized, immediately useful, or entertaining. And for better or for worse, Gilbert Arenas' content is in fact entertaining.
It's definitely entertaining.
And so he fits within the my definition of good content. And I can't watch him for very long. I can't watch his show for very long, mostly because I don't like his co-host. But
she hasn't been on there that much.
She hasn't, but just the sight of her makes me violent. So there's something about her that I can't
she's a
get
porn
behind.
star?
No, I've seen interviews that I don't care if she's a porn star. Like, good for her that she made that career transition. I'm glad that you put your clothes on and it worked out for you.
Had to get off the back.
Yeah, had to get off the back, honey. I don't hate on somebody for making a career transition. Good for you. There's just her personality is just grating to me.
It's no different than going from the field to the boardroom. I mean, she figured it out.
Yeah, she made a career transition. Good for her.
I don't know about that.
I don't care. I mean, I don't care about that.
Yeah, but if you're doing it on a part-time basis,
I'm like, ugh. It annoys me. But we're running out of time for the show. I have one more thing that I want to know is what is one social media trend that you guys wish would stop?
Facebook.
Facebook.
Let's get rid of Facebook.
That would stop.
Yes. I don't think Facebook is a trend per
Yeah,
se,
I
but I know what
Get
you're
rid of the
saying.
whole thing.
No, you don't want to get rid of Facebook.
It's here to stay. It's here to stay.
Yeah, Facebook's not going anywhere.
It's not going anywhere.
Something that would. Man.
They reported their earnings today, and they're going pretty strong. They're not going anywhere.
I saw like a 78-year-old on Facebook. And I was
What's
just
wrong
like,
with a 78-year-old being on Facebook?
Yeah, I mean,
it's just going in a different direction.
Everyone is on Facebook.
Ridiculous.
See what I got to deal with?
Yeah, I mean,
This is the social media that I need to stop right here. I don't know, man. I don't know.
So anything for you?
I'm sure there's something that
Probably
annoys
dick
me.
pics.
Dick pics, yeah. I mean, just
I got three daughters. I tell you what, if I ever see that, there's gonna be a problem. Off the record might not exist anymore.
Because you're gonna be that dad in the courtroom the other day. I mean,
and I don't blame him.
I don't blame him either.
I don't
My heart
blame
goes
him
out to him. I don't blame him either.
But I think I know it's something that I need. Catfishes, and oh my gosh,
is this a person?
No. I've never been catfished. No. Here's why.
Caught me off guard.
Here's why. So my personal my personal Instagram and my face, is private. So
yes,
if you just get a bunch of random people trying to add you, and I'm like,
they're bots.
Yes, and that's how you get viruses on your computer and get hacked and things of that nature. And I think that's like I hate it.
I thought you were going to tell us a Ray Allen story.
I
thought that was going in a whole other direction.
No.
I mean, yes, it is annoying. It is annoying. I do agree. So tell the folks at home where they can find you, what time, where you at. Tell the kiddies at home where they can tune into your show.
You can tune in www.bliss.fm. Yes, / off the record. The Twitter is the OTR show.
Yep.
On Instagram is the Off the Record show.
Right.
On Facebook, which Scott hates, is Off the Record. Well, once we're working on a website.
Right.
So once the website is up, we'll have the video content where you just be able to click on it and go back and listen to the shows. If you want to listen to the old shows, you go to bliss.fm / off the record. And if you have iTunes, you can download the podcast on iTunes as well. So we're all over.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, for tuning in tonight. If you'd like to watch this show or talk with us or see other things, you can do so. You can always connect with this show on Twitter at LTP Brand Radio or on Instagram at Let's Talk Personal. I know you like sending me messages. I've seen them come in throughout the show. You can do so directly to me at Firestarter CEO on Instagram or Your Firestarter on Twitter. Tune in next week when we are going to have a surprise guest that I'm going to keep quiet. It's Valentine's Day, so Lord only knows who that could possibly be. Okay. For those in the DC, it's going to be an X. No, just joking. It's not. For those living in the DC metro area, Thursday night in Fairfax, guys, if you want to come learn how to build your brand the right way so that it doesn't impact your romance mojo, you can find me at the Primetime Bar and Grill at 7 o'clock. Come to my class, $25. It's going to be beers, it's going to be laughs, it's going to be fun. If you missed that, Friday night, I will be at Competitive Edge down in Woodbridge teaching the same class all over again. In the online digital world, your dating profile and your personal profile are not mutually exclusive. So let me teach you the way to build your personal profile so that you can find love and not embarrass yourself.
So your profile pic with your shirt off, that's not a good way to
it's a no-go. It's a no-go. It's a hard pass for me.
So some people need to probably go to both sessions.
They probably should. They need to, like summer school, they need a repeat.
They need to go to
the first session. Exactly.
The laughs are probably going to continue offline, but we have to get offline because it's the end of the show. I'm Frances Reimers, and you've tuned in to Let's Talk Personal. See you next week.